All right, so I'm here on the AutoCAD web app, and we're going to start to get familiar with this today and how to begin our drawing. There are some differences between the AutoCAD web app and the full version. You're going to kind of use both in the class, and I'll go over what some of those differences are when we get into the full version of AutoCAD. So we're going to start by clicking here where it says New Drawing, and we just want to title this drawing. So for right now, we're just going to title this Practice. And remember, using our file saving nomenclature methods, we're going to add a hyphen and then your first initial and your last name behind there. So make sure that you are using our file naming system. We will be calling up these drawings later, and you want to make sure that you are able to find them where you've stored them. So now, the first drawing template here that is showing is a metric. We will not use metric, so you want to click that and go to the imperial. That is our inches and feet, so we'll use that one and hit create. This will take us into and open up a drawing for us to start to work on. All right, so now that I'm here, we want to talk about some of the different tools. You're going over here on the left-hand side, you have what's called object properties. That has to do with the object that we're actually drawing and some of the different tools that we're using. There's layers properties here. We will talk extensively about using layers and the way we're going to use it. There is another one here that's called blocks, X references or external references, and then traces. We won't really be using any of those in this class at this point. We're predominantly going to be using object properties and especially layers. Let's move our cursor right on down to below that. You'll see what's called a draw panel that contains all of our different drawing tools in here. Annotate and the annotate tools that we have, and then modify and the modify tools that we have. And we'll go over all of these as well. You need to get familiar with what they are and what they can do as we're drawing. So let me go back to the draw panel here, and you'll see we've got the rectangle, a circle, we've got an arc, we have what is called a spline, we have a X line, a regular line, we have a pline, and this is called a hatch. This is an array. This is the divide tool, an ellipse tool, and a polygon tool to give us different types of images as well. The ones that you're predominantly going to be using, of course, is rectangle, circle, arc, and line. Those are probably the ones that you will use the most. If we get into the annotate, let's take a look at what the tools are that we have in the annotate panel. We have a measuring tool. So if you're not sure if you've drawn something and it doesn't look right, you can use the measure tool to go in and make sure that you've actually drawn it to the correct size. We have a rev cloud. We have the dimension tool. There is a text tool to add text to a drawing. And then there is our leader tool where we can put leader lines and so forth in there. The ones that you're predominantly going to use, especially here at the beginning, are going to be your measure tool and the dimension tool. We will also kind of get a little bit of text there as well. The next is the modify panel. And we have several things here with the modified panel. So we have the move tool, the stretch, the mirror tool, so we can draw something and then mirror it. So we a fillet, a chamfer, and hopefully you guys recall we've talked about fillets and chamfer and wood and how we make those on a corner using rasp or other types of cutting tools to make either a fillet or a chamfer. You have the copy tool, the trim tool, an erase tool, the rotate tool, scale, offset, join, match properties, extend, explode, and break out point. Now, notice too, if you don't necessarily have to memorize what all these are. You will get familiar with them just through use. But if you ever forget exactly what it is, just keep your cursor over there. I know a lot of times we get impatient. We just kind of want to go through. Just stop and hold, let your cursor stay on top and hover over it. You'll get the little pop-up that kind of lets you know what that is. So, and then the modify tool, you're going to use quite a few of them. Some of them you won't use. I know I use fillet and chamfer quite a bit. I also use the move. I use copy and trim a lot. Load gets used a lot, so does scale, and offset definitely. As a matter of fact, we're going to be using offset quite a bit here in the beginning, just to give you an idea of what those are. So, so you'll start to develop work habits and tools that you use quite a bit as favorites, and some that you might not necessarily use much. So I'm going to go back to the draw panel for right now, and then I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what some of these other things are, especially down here as we go. Now, this, of course, right here is our drawing space. Notice that there are, it's black. We can change that color if we want. And I will give you some information and show you how to do that. And right now we are in what is referred to as a model space. So the model space is where we will always be drawing. And this is our drawing area. So we will always be drawing right in this particular area. If you click on the next tab, you've got a layout 1, and a layout 2. Now, both of these are used at the very end when we have kind of finished up our drawings, when we actually want to make blueprints and we want to print out blueprints. We kind of set things up on the layout view to get those to print out. So that's kind of where the layout 1 and layout 2 tabs here are used for. But for the most part in this class, you're predominantly going to be in your model space. Let's go over here and talk about what all these buttons are. Now, I'm going to turn on or turn off these different buttons. So now they're not highlighted, so they're off. So I'm would just be kind of freestyle drawing up here, and things are going to be kind of dependent on my clicking and putting stuff in to it. But these help with the drawing. So first off, we have this O snap. That's called object snap. And if you'll notice, there's this arrow there. Anytime you see an arrow in AutoCAD, that usually means there's more things there that you can, and more tools that you can use. So object snaps are ways that help us to draw based on different things on the object, or the line, or the rectangle, circle, whatever we are drawing. So you'll notice here, and these are all geometric things, so it's a lot of geometry that we're talking about here. So we've got endpoints of a line, we've got midpoints of a line that we can do. We've got intersection, extension, center, geometric center, tangent. You've heard me talk about tangent before. Quadrant, the 4 quadrants there. We've got perpendicular, a node. We've got nearest, parallel, and insertion. So I'm going to turn off some things right here for right now. So notice I kind of have to, as I click these, it forces you to go back and recheck. Not a big deal. Not sure why, just the way the system was designed, it would be easier if they would let you check more than one at a time on that, but they don't. So you got to deal with it the way it is. Now I want to kind of show you here how object snap works. So if I'm drawing a line, so I'm going to start drawing a line by clicking on my line tool, and it comes over. Notice down here in my command bar it says specify the first point. So I'm going to come up over here, and if you look in the lower right hand corner above where it says escape and enter and polar, you'll notice that we're given some dimensions. We're given some X and Y dimensions. Now right now, this dimension and where my cursor is in reference to 0, 0 is 118 feet 6 1/8 inches in the X, 50 feet 8 11/16 inches in the Y. So I'm pretty far out there, and I'm scaled back quite a bit. So here I want to show you. Let's go. It's specify the first point. So I'm going to stay off of my x0, y0, and I'm going to have an insertion point of 1. So I'm going to type in 1 and then a comma. So 1's my x, then a comma, and then 1 for my y position. And I'll just go ahead and press enter on my keyboard. Now you'll see here that I'm getting this kind of pop up, and I have a lot of long lines, so this is pretty long, and I can physically, as we get these different boxes around it, so that first box that's highlighted is the length of the line. The second box is kind of the angle, and you can see as I move my cursor around where it's going. Now this is a pretty long line at 104 feet, so I don't want that long. And I also don't want it at 14 feet. So I can go back and forth between those two blocks just by hitting tab. So I'm going to go tab over, and I'm going to make this 0 degrees for where the line goes. Now that's going to be a horizontal line directly to the right of where my insertion point was. So tab back over. And I just want to show you what's going to happen here, because I definitely don't want a 104-foot line. So I'm just going to say we want this to be a 5.5, 5.5-inch line. And I'm going to hit enter. So now notice it looks like nothing happened. So, and we can't see it. So I'm going to escape out of this. So to do that, I'm going to exit my line command. So I can either go over here and click the check button to finish, or I can right click and hit cancel. So, and now if I go zoom, so we're going to say zoom, and then I'm going to go all, or the letter A, and enter. So notice what happens. It zooms in. So you did draw the line, but remember, we were drawing a 5.5-inch line. So, and we were zoomed way out. So when you kind of entered that, you didn't see it because you were too far out. So we got to zoom in to see where that line is. Now I'm going to change, and let's kind of go and say I want to draw another line. I'm going to draw another line at this endpoint. Let's see how this reacts. I'm going to click my line command here, and again, notice nothing. If I wanted to kind of come in and pick up on one of these endpoints, it's going to be very hard. I can kind of zoom in. I'm using my roller on my mouse right now. I can zoom in a little bit and try to get close to it, but I'm not actually going to be able to pick up on that endpoint. So that's where turning our object snap on. So I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to click on that to turn it on. And notice, since I don't have any selections picked in Object Snap, I'm going to have to click my arrow, and I'm going to say I want the endpoint here. So I'm going to put a check mark by the endpoint. Now look what happens. Now I get this, like where it kind of zooms in. I get that green box, that green square that kind of goes on those endpoints. Nothing else. So now I could click that, and it'll be easy to draw the line. So let's try a different one here. Let's go with the midpoint. I'm going to put a check mark by the midpoint. Now notice I still have the endpoint, and here at my midpoint, that's the exact center of the line. So if you don't want to sit there and calculate out, well, half of 5.5 would be the line length. There is 5.5 inches in the X. So half of that is going to be 2.75. And if you don't want to calculate that, you can just kind of click on that object snap and use that for to help you out. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this line. I'm going to draw it at the end point over here, and I'm going to go straight up. Okay, now notice again, so I don't have anything here, so I'm going to physically have to kind of manually type in what I want. So I'm going to say 5.5, and I'm going to tab over so it automatically jumps to that length. And I'm going to say I want this at 90 degrees. So I'm going to go 90 degrees and enter. Okay, now let me right click and confirm to exit out of my draw command. Now we don't see the top of that line because we're zoomed in too close. So again, I'm going to type in zoom, enter, and I get all sorts of different ways that I can zoom here. So I'm going to say, let's just use the zoom all. Again, you can go down with your cursor and click on that, or you can just hit the letter A and enter, and it will give it to you too. So some people are better with the mouse and want to use the mouse to go do that. Some people prefer to just use the keyboard command. All right, I want to show you now. So hopefully you kind of see how Object Snap is and how we can kind of use this. The ones that we want to kind of set up is intersection. So we want right now parallel, and maybe center are good ones for us to have on right now. And we'll keep the Object Snap on. Let's go over and talk about O-Track or Object Track. I'm going to also turn on Object Track now. Now, Object Track is another way to help you line things up with other points that might be going out in space. So let me create the line here, and I'm going to create a line over here as well. So I'm going to start to draw. So, and I'm going to go over here. Now, let me say I want this to kind of be lined up with this endpoint. And I don't know what the actual length of that line is. So I can kind of use this object track to kind of cursor over, and then notice how that kind of gives me a line. So when I come in there, now it's tracking that for me. So I can zoom in and I know that I'm the same length. So I click that there and place the line. So, and that's kind of the way, again, I right click and confirm to exit out of that. That's the way object track works. So we'll want to have on object snaps and object tracks when tracking when we draw this. Now, we have two other things. Let's talk about ortho here for a minute. I'm going to turn on ortho. Ortho is a way that gives us the ability to just draw horizontal or vertical lines. So it's a great tool to have on if that's all we need. So if I go here to create my line, and I'm going to click any place for right now, and I just go whatever length. Notice now, let me zoom out a little bit. Notice at this point, I can only draw horizontal or vertical lines. So if you know that those are the lines that you need, turning ortho on is a great way. All you kind of have to do is type in the length of the line you want. Say I want a 10-inch line. I can move to the right if I want it to be horizontal, or I can move to the top and just hit enter, and you got your line there. Now, coming back up, I just kind of move up my cursor straight above the line. Again, I'll say 10 inches and hit enter. Now that line disappeared, so because we're outside of our drawing area. So confirm this. I want to see what I did again, so I'm going to zoom, enter, all, enter. So, and now I kind of bring that in. So if I zoom out too far, let me zoom out all the way out there. I can also say zoom, and in this case, I want a window. So I want to kind of pick up and window over that. So I hit the W for window, and then I just take my cursor, I left click and bring it down and drag it over what I want to, and then I left click again, and then that kind of zooms around all of those objects that I want to look at. So that's ortho. We also have what's called polar. Now you can only use either ortho or polo at once. You can't use both. Of course, they could both be turned off, but polar is a way that we can get different angles. So again, I can set polar to just be at 90 degrees. I can have it at 45, 30, 23, 15, 10, 5. I can do it at any of these. I'm going to start here with 45 and show you what you get when this reacts. So now if I go to draw my line, I'm going to come right up to this endpoint. Notice as I draw, now it's going to kind of key in. See how you get that green line, dotted line at 45. So this helps you to, using polar, helps you to kind of quickly add lines at different common angles that we use all the time. So, and you'll notice in terms of the direction of these polar lines. So generally AutoCAD goes from right shooting on around to left. So if you're entering some angles, it's all kind of referenced, assuming going from the positive X direction and moving around as you go. So that's the polar coordinate. Now let's go ahead again. When I left click to draw and place the endpoint, to exit, I just right click and hit confirm, and it takes me out of that command. Let's go to, say, 30 degrees, and you'll see how this goes. Now, if I don't want to take my cursor all the way back over here and I'm over here, it's going to save me some time. I just right click, repeat last command. It takes me right back to the draw line command. So there we go. Click on that. Now I'm at 0. Now it's locking you in at 30, locks you in at 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, so on. Now, that's not to say that I can't draw an angle, say at some odd increment like 35.5 degrees, but I would have to kind of tab over and actually physically key that in. Using these polar snaps, I can quickly do whatever the common angles are. So with those polar snaps. So let me go ahead. I don't want to draw that line, so I'll just hit escape and get out of that. And again, I could have also right clicked and escaped that way too. So this is just a basic intro on our tools that we have to use to draw different shapes in AutoCAD Web.